Hi, welcome. If you don't know me, I'm Anna. I'm a clinical psychology doctoral candidate, and on this channel we talk about real-life applications to psychology. So if that is something that you want to see more of, go ahead and subscribe. Today we're doing what I think will be part of a mini-series, depending how badly you guys want to see this, on how the internet is manipulating us all. Today's video is on one of the ways, or I guess kind of a few of the ways that are kind of interconnected that the internet manipulates us, which is through the use of bots and more indirectly groupthink. So do let me know if you want to see more of these videos, and let's just get started. If you don't know, bots are fake accounts that infiltrate social media, usually created to spread misinformation or propaganda or to destabilize communities. For example, the Russian bots during the US election, or various PR campaigns meant to skew the public's perception of a celebrity or a public figure who's trying to get a certain narrative. According to a report by Rand Fishkin's company SparkToro, which uses data analyses to identify bot accounts, it's estimated that 19% of Twitter accounts are spam or bots. Studies have found, references in description box by the way, as always, that partisanship on either side of the political spectrum causes people to be more vulnerable to manipulation by bots, and also ends up with people finding themselves in echo chambers. So the study looked at specifically Twitter, and it found that right-leaning accounts were exposed to more low credibility information than left-leaning accounts. Conservative accounts were fed information which moved them further to the right, whereas liberal accounts were exposed to more moderate content, shifting them closer to the political center. Partisan accounts also tended to receive more popularity and influence, particularly conservative ones, which is interesting because I know there are certain public figures out there these days who claim that Twitter is socialist, leftist propaganda, and this study actually found that that's not the case. Another study found something maybe even more concerning, which is that people actually have very limited ability to detect bots, and they tend to mistake bots for real people more than the inverse. This is concerning since past research has found that bots proliferate low credibility information on social media and are able to influence socio-political events. So basically, people are very vulnerable to manipulation by this AI technology. Is it AI? I don't know. I'm not an IT person, so I don't know what AI technically is or isn't. Some people actually run these accounts, so some of them are like actual people. But the power of bots lies in one of our major human weaknesses, which is groupthink. Groupthink is when a group of well-intentioned people make irrational or bad decisions because they want to conform to the group. The phenomenon has been associated with poor outcomes, unethical or immoral behavior, even death and destruction. It stems from our social belonging needs. As humans, we evolved to rely on the pack for survival. And if we don't have a pack, then we're vulnerable to threats. So we do everything in our power to stay in our group's good graces. I know, social belonging needs are one hell of a drug. This is so ingrained in our psychology that it's no longer just on a conscious level. It's now on an unconscious level too, where our brains try to convince us to believe what the pack is saying because it wants us to be accepted and to survive. This is why bots are so effective and so dangerous. They try to convince us that everyone around us is saying the same thing, sometimes literally word for word the same thing. And if everyone around us is saying the same thing, surely they must be right, and surely we must conform in order to fit in. You'll find that bots and groupthink result in people really just parroting the exact same arguments and phrases. And this is what I find the most interesting, which is that a lot of people behave like bots, even in situations where it's unlikely that they are. Like some random apolitical TikTok where all the comments just say the same thing over and over and over again. I've seen this on videos, even like when something a YouTuber is saying isn't being received well, and then people will kind of take on this mob mentality where they just repeat the same few phrases like, "This is a bad look, how could you do this, blah blah blah," like the same shit over and over and over again. And it's like, do all these people really think that this was their original idea that they decided to comment? What's so insidious about this one is that we rarely stop and ask ourselves, hold on, is this actually my original thought? Or is this just something I saw online that resonated with me and now I'm just parroting? It's important to check in with ourselves about where we're getting our opinions and evidence, because otherwise we're very prone to manipulation. The moment we stop asking ourselves, hold on, who has influenced this opinion? Is this a reliable source? Is this someone who has something to gain from me believing what they have to say? Is the moment that we basically sacrifice our critical thinking. I can't even tell you the amount of times I've been catching myself lately saying something because I genuinely believed it was my original thought, and then realizing, oh, I actually read this somewhere. This is what someone else said. This isn't what I originally thought. Hold on a minute, let me ask myself, what do I actually think about this given the information and the evidence that I have? Bots and groupthink also create this in-group, out-group dynamic, where they're basically weaponizing your empathy for the in-group to demonize the out-group. When groups feel threatened, either physically or through threats to their identity, they may develop this strong us versus them mentality. Basically, the polarization of the political system in the US, for example. Most demonization of a group of people in history is a reaction to perceived victimization. For example, the anti-Semitism that has historically led to awful human rights violations that I don't think I'm allowed to say on this channel were the result of the depiction of Jews as these power-hungry, money-grabbing individuals who were basically victimizing the in-group. And so then people felt justified in doing atrocious human rights violations because, well, they're bad, they're hurting the in-group. Something that I see a lot these days is the current depiction of people with personality disorders online, particularly narcissism. I've spoken about this before, but there is this real conflation between narcissism and abuse, even though they're not at all the same thing. Like, there are certain traits within narcissism that can be abusive, but it's not mandatory that every person diagnosed with narcissism has them. And so when you're depicting this whole class of people with a personality disorder as evil and victimizing your in-group, then it gives you all the reason in the world that you need to demonize them and to actually preemptively strike at them. If we want the well-being of all humanity, not just our subgroup, not just our in-group, then we have to extend empathy and compassion even to people that we're told don't deserve it. Not only do bots and groupthink weaponize our empathy, they also weaponize our passion. First of all, by enforcing passion through guilting, shaming, peer pressure. I'm sure you've seen some people post things like, if you don't care about this cause or you don't post about this issue, then you're a bad person. And everyone whose opinion you value is posting about this, so maybe you should too. So first you're enforcing that people are feeling impassioned about a certain topic. Then you're weaponizing that passion to basically erase all nuance. Where basically, these people are all bad, these people are all good. If you're not with us, you're against us. Passion is fine and sometimes great. Passion is needed. Passion is adjacent to anger sometimes, which is necessary to fix injustices. But when it's manipulated and misdirected by people who don't have the group's better interest at heart, it can become very dangerous. In Homeland, which is a TV show that, again, I highly recommend you watch. It is so good. It hooks you. It's so frustrating. It's a great female lead. It's very empowering. Really allows for a multifaceted female character lead who is at the same time unsympathetic, yet also very intelligent and competent. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. You should watch Homeland. But basically, in season 6, I want to say, there's this scene where all these bots have turned people against the president who was elected. And then you have all these impassioned protests outside the White House because Russian intelligence meddled in US politics. And it's so frustrating in the TV show knowing, a little bit removed what is actually happening in the plot, that they look like such sheep. They believed these lies. They allowed themselves to be pushed into passion for a cause that wasn't even real, because they wanted to socially conform to a bunch of bots, to a bunch of people that don't exist. And then they allowed that passion to get weaponized by a foreign government. And that passion can also turn into self-righteousness. If I believe that my group is right and good and that the other group is wrong and terrible, then I will start to feel self-righteous. I was reflecting on this, and I think that to an extent, I was also guilty of this. If you're gonna be passionate about something, do so because you care about the cause, you care about the people involved in it, not because you're trying to feed your ego. And of course, I see this on the other side of the spectrum as well, with people who aren't really virtue signaling, but rather vice signaling. And they still feel self-righteous, but this time it's because they can see how fake the other people are, and they think they're better than them for being, I don't know, like blunt or telling it like what it is or something. Our egos will stop at nothing to prevail. So what can we do about this? How can we combat bots, groupthink, self-righteousness, and those that want to divide us? First of all, I think we need to be constantly aware that these things exist and stop and just take a moment to think, could this be a bot? Is everyone around me saying the same thing? Am I feeling self-righteous? And secondly, we have to check in with ourselves. What do you think about this? Putting aside what everyone else is saying, what seems logical and reasonable to you? Then check your evidence. If you're in a scientific field and you're able to disseminate scientific articles and you have access to scientific databases, look up the answer there. If the matter in question isn't scientific, check the original source. If you can't find either, don't just blindly trust what someone is saying. Ask yourself what this source might have to gain from you believing this. Number 4, regularly practice empathy for people who aren't a part of your group. You know, some ways you can do this, you can try to genuinely understand what their viewpoint is, even if you don't agree with it or you find it offensive at first. Before you find yourself demonizing them because you think they're hurting the people that you care about, ask yourself what suffering they might be going through. Ask yourself how this person came to have the views that they do. There must be a reason, there must be some course of action that led to them being this way. Number 5, keep your ego in check. Remind yourself that you're not better than someone else for your beliefs. You're not inherently good, your group isn't perfect, and the outgroup is terrible. And you might be thinking, well, this actually is a matter of morality, what I'm thinking about. Like, I do think this person is being worse because of their beliefs. That can sometimes be true. I'm not saying that it's not. Like, some beliefs are truly egregious. Some people are racist, sexist, transphobic, homophobic, all that stuff. It could very well be that they hold shitty views, and according to your moral compass, they are wrong for that. Just try not to overestimate when that's the case. You know, like conservatives making trans rights into an issue of keeping kids safe from abusers. You know, like anything can be taken too far where it's a matter of, well, no, this is morally right and what they're doing is terrible. And if you struggle with this one, my next video in this mini series, if I end up making it, will be something that hopefully helps you think about it differently when we talk about how to not overestimate harm caused. And lastly, be open to the possibility that you might change your mind if new evidence presents itself. If you're not tethered to a certain dogma, you're more open to listening to evidence without resorting to confirmation bias. Like that study that I was talking about mentioned. If you lean very heavily on one side or the other, you could be more vulnerable to manipulation, and that can get weaponized to hurt people, and you might not even be realizing it. Because when we belong to a group, not only do we use confirmation bias to confirm our own beliefs, we also use it to confirm the group's beliefs. So be okay with saying, I'm not sure what I think about this. Like, this is me with economic systems, for instance. Like, I'm not sure how I feel about capitalism or communism or socialism. Like, my parents lived through a communist dictatorship that was terrible, but on the other hand, I also see the terrible inequalities in capitalism. So it's like, I don't know, this isn't my field, this isn't my area of expertise. I don't feel very strongly about this, and that's okay. And if you want me to feel very strongly about this, then that could be a problem, because you could have something to gain from that. So be okay with the possibility that you could change your mind, that new information could come forward, or that you just don't know yet. You just need to gather all the information, let the experts make their case, and then make an informed decision based on that. So I think this is a really important topic, and if it's something that resonated with you, I hope that it helped you, and please give it a like if that's the case. So let me know if you want to see that other video on ways the internet is manipulating us, and I will see you in a few days.